Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It's Grace and the video that I'm going to be doing today is my November wrap-up. This was a really extraordinary month of reading, which you can tell because the lowest rating that I have this month is 4 stars. I do have a couple of 4 stars, but still, everything was 4 stars or above. I was enjoying myself so much, and I just want to get right into what I read this month and tell you about it. So the very first thing that I read in the month of November was A Crown of Swords by Robert Jordan, book 7 in the Wheel of Time. I felt like I got over the hump with Lord of Chaos, but having A Crown of Swords under my belt truly feels like I have breached that middle hump of the Wheel of Time series, and I'm really on the homeward stretch now, even though I'm in the middle of Path of Daggers and I still have 6 more books left. Just goes to show you how long this series is. But I really enjoyed Crown of Swords. I know I said this in my video spoiler chat, but there are differing opinions on what constitutes the slog in the Wheel of Time. I personally didn't feel like A Crown of Swords was part of it. I was still very engaged throughout this book, and this is one of the 2 books from this month that I gave 4 stars. So I still really enjoyed it. If you want super in-depth, spoilery thoughts on this book, I will have my video for this linked up in the cards and down in the description, so you can go check it out if you would like to. And yeah, I'm already continuing with this series. Wheel of Time still continues to be super interesting to me. I think that the TV show coming out has really picked up my enthusiasm as well, so I love to see how many new people are getting into this series right now too because of the TV show. Even though it's only earlier this year that I started reading it, it still helps. It feeds my energy for it to see so many other people starting it now too and enjoying it. So yeah, Wheel of Time is still well underway. The second book that I read in the month of November was The Hod King by Josiah Bancroft, and this series has not failed me so far, seriously. I have given all 3 of these books 5 stars. I've just loved them. And the interesting thing about star ratings, I know that they are so subjective, but the interesting thing is that despite giving all 3 of these books 5 stars, I still think that Arm of the Sphinx, the second book, is my favorite. But with that said, I did love The Hod King. I am still so attached to these characters. I really liked what Josiah Bancroft did. This book is a little bit longer than the first 2, so we got to spend more time with some of the characters, and a few of them that didn't get as much chance to shine in earlier books really got their chance to shine in this book. And so I am just really, I have the Fall of Babel, the final installment of this series, on my December TBR that I'm hoping to get to soon. So I can't say enough good things about this. I'm really looking forward to closing it out, and I hope that the finale is just as good as the other 3 of these books are, because I could just say that I have high hopes for it. So we have talked about one of the empty spaces that you can see behind me on the shelf. Now let's talk about the other one, and that is Jade War by Fonda Lee. So as a lot of you probably know, the finale to this series has also just come out. It released on November 30th, and I read this book just before the release, basically, a week before. And all year I've been saying to myself, I need to read Jade War. I really need to read it, because I read Jade City in February, and I kept putting it off, and I was annoyed at myself for continuing to put it off, but I'm glad that I didn't have to wait very long before Jade Legacy. I am so happy that I read this and I only had a week or whatever, and then I could just dive right into Jade Legacy, because after Jade War, I was absolutely ready to finish the series. I fell in love with Jade War. It was 5 stars for me. I have just posted a review for Jade War if you're interested in spoiler-free and spoiler-filled thoughts, and I will have that linked in the cards and in the description. Same with any video that I mention here, but Jadeboar just took everything good about Jade City and just like stepped it up to the next level in a way that I almost wouldn't have believed possible, because I really liked Jade City, but when I look back, I just think it almost pales in comparison to Jadeboar, despite how good it is, because Fonda Lee just really dove further into the world that she had created. She made it wider, but she also made it deeper, because you get to spend more time with the characters, you get to learn way more about the world building and the magic, and it's all the characters that are really driving the story. And the strength in that is that the characters were even more complex, sympathetic, interesting in Jadeboar than they were in Jade City. So if you, for some reason, have been waiting to continue with this series, please pick up Jadeboar, because it is so good. The next book that I read in the month of November was Men at Arms by Terry Pratchett, which is the second book in the City Watch series, the sub-series of Discworld. And I gave this 5 stars as well, just because, like, Terry Pratchett, I don't even know, like, if you've read him, you know, but his humor is just perfect. He manages to fit so much social commentary into his books when they really are, like, absurdist, but they're also, I think that's what makes them so good, is they're absurdist and they're funny, but when you get right down to it, the underlying commentary that he's making is so grounded in reality that you can't help but connect to it, even if something totally ridiculous is happening on page. I still think that I liked Guards a little bit more, but they were both 5 stars for me because they were both just fantastic books. And the other thing is that they are easy reads too. Like, they flow well. It is such an escape. It's such a nice little breath of fresh air compared to like all the big heavy fantasy books that I've been reading. Like, and as you can see, like, for example, Jadeboar and The Hod King, I adore those books, but it's still nice to break up the flow of those extremely long books with something that is a little bit easier to get through. So, as you can see, I had a very fantasy heavy month. So I broke it up a little bit even further by the next book that I read, which was Atomic Habits by James Clear. And this is another book that I haven't exactly been putting it off, but I've owned this for quite a while, and I just haven't really found a place to slot it in. But earlier this year, I was averaging about 1 nonfiction book per month, and I want to get back to that, or maybe just closer to that, where I'm still reading nonfiction a little bit more frequently, because it does help to break up my fantasy mood a little bit. Like, the last thing that I want to do is get burned out on fantasy. And so Atomic Habits, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and I think I went into it thinking that it was going to be a self-help book backed up by science a little bit, but it did lean a lot more heavily on the science, to my pleasant surprise. Because I love science, but I also, I can get lost a little bit in a self-help book that's just trying to give me an opinion, whereas I really gravitate towards books like this, where it is out to help you, but everything that he writes in this book, he provides examples for, and he talks about research that he has gotten his stuff from, and how he has put other people's research together into his own plan of action for how to form habits, and it is really detailed advice, which I like. And the other thing that I really liked about this book is that he makes his advice very actionable. So it's not vague, it is very clearly laid out for things that you can act on and things that you can implement in your day-to-day life if you are looking to build habits the way that he suggests in the book. And he also breaks it down into really manageable chunks while he's teaching this method to you. So overall, I thought that it was a really appealing book. I learned a lot, and it definitely seems like it would be a valuable resource if you are looking to change your habits. So So the final thing that I read in the month of November was on my Kindle. That was the novella When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nhi Vo. And so this is the second novella in the Singing Hills cycle, which I believe is going to consist of 5 novellas according to Goodreads, but these two, to the best of my knowledge, the first 2 are the only ones that are out right now. And I read the first one in October, and then I read the second one in November. And when I was talking about the first novella, The Empress of Salt and Fortune, I said that it was a very whimsical style. It's a very fairy tale-esque style of storytelling, and all of that also applies to When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain. But I actually think I liked When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain more. I think that the story appealed to me a little bit more. And because it's a novella and it's so short, I won't say much, but what I will say is we're following the same cleric that we follow in The Empress of Salt and Fortune, whose job it is to travel to different parts of their world and basically record things. Record the way that life is lived, record stories, record whatever have you, because the place where they are employed collects this information and creates records out of it and tries to have all of this information about how life is in places. So this is kind of the journeys of that cleric, where they are just in a different situation in this novella, and that is the story that you get from them, is basically one little snippet of their job. And so in this one, they are telling us a story, and I really loved it. The fairy tale-esque element still came through very strongly. I don't know, I think that these novellas are like comfort food to me. I don't even know if I mentioned this at the start, but I did give this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I could have easily read this novella in one sitting if I didn't have something else to do in the middle of reading it, but it was great. I really liked it. So those are the 6 things that I read in the month of November. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you think of them. You can also check out my review for Jade War and for A Crown of Swords if you are interested. Let me know down in the comments what you read in the month of November, or maybe what your favorite thing that you read in the month of November is. I would love to know. I'm also always adding things to the ever-growing TBR, so I'd like to know what the rest of you enjoyed this month. And yeah, like I said, I really did have a fantastic reading month. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content from me, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!